I think people hear those numbers and go, they couldn't pay Smith 100 and pay Cam Robinson 6. Yeah, they can. Yes, they can. Easily. They easily could do it.
Yeah.
And I think the Chiefs, to me, if they walked out of the offseason with some package of players like that, I'd be like, this team's ready to go, man. And on top of that, if you signed all those players at those positions, you go into the draft, you do whatever the hell you want.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
It's That Football Show here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin, as always, hanging out with Matt Verderame. Thank you to our sponsors, Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon and Holiday Distillery. Look, my bottle just lives on my desk because after that Chiefs Super Bowl game, I need it. When I have flashbacks to it, I just go ahead and pour me some.
That bottle was full before the game.
It was, yeah. And then you know what happens when you put
by halftime.
Yeah, then at halftime I stopped caring is what happened. And then that's when I got nihilist and all of everything. But we're here to talk about some Chiefs offseason stuff, NFL offseason stuff. There's some news that came down about the NFL salary cap, some upcoming free agents that the Chiefs have. But Matt, how are you doing? How was your week?
My week's fine. It's cold as shit.
Yeah.
I dropped off my daughter the other day at school. It was -11. I was like, I'm done with this. Yeah. I'm ready to go somewhere where it's warm and it's nice. And I say that, and I'm pretty sure it's 5 degrees outside right now. So I have failed in that endeavor. But other than the fact it's freezing beyond all compare, good. Week's been fine. Living the dream. Finally got into a doctor with the old back situation that you know about. They called me up the day after that. They're like, "Hey, listen, we got your MRI results. How's it feel?" I'm like, it's all right. Your leg hurts. Better than I'm right. Like, you have 3 bulging discs and 2 of them are torn. You don't want to fix that. So I went to Northwestern on Monday Medical Center, and they're like, "Listen, we're gonna shoot the crap out of your back, but we think that'll fix it." I'm like, "It sounds great." They're like, "You're going to be numb for a little while because we got to give you an epidural, so somebody's going to have to drive you." I was like, "I don't care. I'll take a bus if I have to. Like, let's get this thing fixed." So after the combine, I'm looking forward to that. But if anybody sees me in Indy and I'm just like dragging my left leg, understand the epidural hasn't happened yet. But no, other than that, man, week's been good. Can't complain. Pickleball galore, just basically threatening my back to go out. We'll see if it happens. And, otherwise, just living the dream, having a little Dunkin' in the morning. We're good.
Ooh, yeah, America runs on Dunkin', not sponsored.
America versus Canada tonight.
Big match. I'll be locked in there.
My only regret, I gotta be honest, is that game's not in Philly.
Oh, dude.
Even as a New Yorker, the absolute best possible setting for that game would be Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Just the unbridled hatred of all things that isn't Philadelphia, it would make for that game to be unbelievable. Just the atmosphere of that game would be insane. It's what I think it's in Boston, correct?
It is in Boston, yeah. Again,
you could do worse. Yeah.
A good place for it, yeah. That game's gonna be great. The first meeting of them was incredible. They had 3 fights in 9 seconds.
9 seconds.
That was pretty sick. I do love the fighting. Like it is just awesome. Like when the boys just drop gloves, like there's nothing better in sports, I don't think, when they're just like, all right, you and I both have a disagreement. Let's settle it by dropping our gloves. That's incredible. I love it.
No, listen, it's awesome. It's awesome. There was a game. I'm sitting here right now, my Devils sweatshirt on. There was a game. God, probably. Well, actually, I can tell you when it was. 2012. The Devils played the Rangers. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with hockey, it's like the hockey version of like the Chiefs and the Raiders. Yeah, they just hate each other. And the game's in Madison Square Garden. They're 2 of the best teams in the league. And they'd had a game prior that had a lot of like physicality to it. And the game started, and everyone on the ice, except for the goaltenders, dropped their gloves and paired off and beat the shit out of each other. I'm telling you, it's on YouTube. It's probably the only time in the last 25 years that's happened in a hockey game. Like that used to happen pretty routinely.
Right.
It was at the Garden. The place went insane, and it was just haymakers, blood all face.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the funny thing was, they actually saw each other in the Eastern Conference Finals that year. And as a Devils fan, I lived in my glory. They beat them in 6 games, but it was, man. People who don't watch hockey, I get it. It's a Canadian sport. You are missing out. And if nothing else, I promise you, watch the playoffs. You will fall in love with hockey. Hockey playoffs are the best playoffs in sports.
Yeah.
There's nothing like 3 overtimes deep and someone cranks one off the post. And it's like, oh, God, it was so good. It's amazing. The drama that is double, triple overtime hockey is
right.
And by the way, maybe you know this, maybe not. There are no commercials in overtime in hockey.
That's awesome.
They don't stop. Like, there's none of this, like, oh, it's a 4-minute time. Oh, fuck that. We're playing. Like, they just go. Once they get to overtime in the NHL in the playoffs, there are no commercial breaks. You play.
Yeah.
Straight. It's awesome. Hockey is, and by the way, everybody out there listening from Kansas City should be a Devils fan. They came from Kansas City. They're the Kansas City Scouts.
It's true. It is true. And that was that hockey show here on That Football Show, our segment. That's our segment. Maybe we'll keep it.
February 20th, all right? We're going to mix in a little hockey.
We will. We'll keep you on your toes here on That Football Show. You never know what we're going to hit. Well, maybe we'll hit some NBA or look, Missouri's playing. Yeah, we'll get to cricket. We will.
Oh, we'll mix in some cricket.
Yeah, that's a good call. I recently watched a YouTube video of how to play, what to understand cricket. Wild game, by the way. It's just they just can just go on forever.
I just want to take a haymaker swing, that's just really connect. Hit the damn thing 1,000 feet. Oh no, I'm in for all hilarious sports. I want to learn how to do curling, and I want to be the guy with the broom. There's the guy. God knows, I'm sure somebody out there's listening to this and they're ashamed of me right now. But there's somebody who throws the rock,
Yeah, the stone. Yeah.
I want to be the guy who's just sweeping like crazy. I get it to curl in.
Yeah,
it's got to be a great feeling when you land the bullseye.
Well, I had made a tweet when the United States beat Canada in the round-robin round of the Four Nations face-off. I was just like, wow, tough day to beat Canada, to be worse at your own sport, And someone responded and said, curling? And I was like, well, that's actually a good point. America's got a pretty decent curling team, but look, the moneymaker sport is obviously football, and there is a large salary cap boom in the NFL. It is.
Look at that transition by you.
I learned from the best. It's not a set yet what the salary cap will be. It's a range right now because there's still a couple of other things, but the projected range is 277.5 to 281.5 million. That's per the league. That is a large bump from what was 255 2 years ago.
Yeah, so they thought it was going to be about 272, 273 this year.
Yeah.
So it's fairly significantly higher than they expected.
I'm reading here as I look to this NFL. I think even Spot Track had this was 6 to 7 million more than they anticipated, and they had some pretty. I don't want to say conservative. I don't think they were conservative estimations because everyone's kind of anticipated this cap to boom at some point. I remember we were having these conversations about going back to the Patrick Mahomes contract. It was well, the cap's going to grow, the cap's going to boom. And I don't necessarily know if this is the boom per se, but I still think there's more to come up. I know Brett Coleman mentioned on Twitter about Nielsen is changing the way that they do ratings to now include streaming services as well. They're able to do that now, which I think is a really interesting thing, which I think can cause more money to enter the league. But Matt, thoughts on the salary cap increasing up or to almost that 277 to 281 number?
Yeah, I think, it helps teams, obviously, that are tighter against the cap.
Yeah.
It's going to help those teams. If you're New England or the Raiders and you have a ton of cap space, it doesn't really matter. But for teams like Kansas City, it's an extra $5-6 million. Now, again, we've talked about this. They could open up a bunch of cap space. But
yeah,
maybe now they don't have to open up as much. So it does help teams like that. Now, the Saints are still $800 million over the cap. So, no, meager help there. But no, I think it does help teams that are tied up against the number. creates a little bit more space. And maybe now, look, and I'm not predicting this, but to be clear, but maybe now Brett Veach looks at Trey Smith and goes, maybe we do use a transition tag because now we have 5 or 6 extra the million to play with that we didn't think we did initially. Now,
Right.
maybe not. Maybe he still says, hey, look, I'm still going to go about it the same way. It's just some extra money and fine. But it can change things in that regard. Though I think it makes a massive difference, no. But I do think it makes a difference. I do think it provides teams with a little more wiggle room that maybe either would have had to create wiggle room or just flat out didn't have it to begin with.
Well, it's a conversation I kind of wanted to go into anyway with the cap, because I think people will see like the cap is grown by this much money. And look, according to the NFL, it's increased by $100 million since 2018. Like, that's insane. Like, that's a lot of money in that short amount of time, and more than $53 million in the last 2 years. Like, that's a lot of money that's now going to these teams. But I don't know if it really changes a whole lot for the Chiefs. Truthfully, I don't think that this cap raise is going to be like, okay, now you can bring back both, Trey Smith and Justin Reed, or Trey Smith and Nick Bolton. I don't think like that's what that means for the Chiefs. I'll be interested to see how they do it. I don't think they will approach it any differently, truthfully, when you think about it, and just like the way that they have this, it's maybe just some extra money to play with in terms of other contracts, because they've got some pretty big upcoming free agents when you talk about with Justin Reed and Nick Bolton. Tershawn Wharton played really well this last season. He might have priced himself out of a contract. Justin Watson's a free agent. They don't really have anybody in their wide receiver room. Nick Bolton's a free agent. Mike Pennell, a guy who has been a pretty decent run stuffer for them, is also on the free agent market. James Winchester, he's not probably going to dictate a lot of top of market value, but like to have that guy, you would assume that he would be back. Charles Omenihu, another guy that's up there on the free agent market. Hollywood Brown, like Joshua Uche, like they've got guys, DJ Humphries, that are going to need to be re-signed. I think that this helps them maybe re-sign one of those vet min guys more than it does get one of those like Justin Reed or Nick Bolton or Trey Smith.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Look, I think that if you're the Chiefs, you already have a pretty good idea of who you'd like to bring back, right? I mean, I'm sure they have plan A, plan B, plan C. Everybody's got that, except for the Jets. But most teams have that. I think there is a certain level of, okay, we're willing to sign this guy at this price. We're willing to sign this guy at this price. And if we sign player A, maybe we don't sign player B. And then there are a couple guys that they're just like, look, we're going to sign him. Like, for example, last year they were signing Chris Jones. That was going to happen. Obviously. By the end of that whole thing, it was like, okay, that's going to happen. There are probably 2 or 3 guys right now that they're sitting there and they're like, look, we have a pretty good feeling what the market is for him and we want him back and we're going to re-sign him. The question is obviously, who are those guys and what is the cost? And so that is where the extra money comes in a little bit. Maybe there's a world now where, let's just argue, for argument's sake, say they were going to sign Justin Reed and Omenihu. Maybe now they're like, well, now we can sign Wharton too.
Yeah.
Because he's not a massive contract. Like, like Winchester guys like that. Like, look, they can sign James Winchester. It's more of like, okay, maybe we were going to sign Trey Smith and Wharton, and now we think we could maybe also squeeze in Omenihu or something like that. Like, you probably can sign one more guy than maybe you were planning on signing.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's helpful. Keep in mind, though, it also gives all these other teams more money. So
yeah,
it's all for more money. The thing that's going to be really interesting, is this is not a great free agency class.
100%.
It's also not a great draft. At least it's what people think. I mean, it could turn out to be a great draft. That's the thought going into it. And the reason I say all that is there are very few things more dangerous in sports than teams that suddenly have a lot of money to spend and nobody worth spending it on. And that's also the sweet spot for teams like the Jets, who, or Jacksonville over the years, or the Raiders, who are just going to spend Like this is the kind of year that 2 years from now we're all sitting here going, man, a lot of cap casualties. Like, yeah, because you signed this guy for 4 and 80, and you should have signed him for 3 and 40. Like, yeah. So. But the one thing I always find interesting about years like this, though, this is the year. These are the types of years, and there's not as much talent out there, but obviously there's always talent to some extent. Smart teams can really benefit if they're patient, because there are going to be deals to be had on that second level.
Mm-hmm.
The Drew Tranquils of the world.
Right.
Guys like that, who it's like, okay, he's not a great player, but he's a really good player. But like he kind of, the first wave free agency came and went. Nobody signed them. Those are the kinds of guys that typically are the guys you end up walking away going, yeah, you know what, that was a really important signing, a really good signing, rather than the guy who is maybe a headline grabber, but you'll look back in 2 years and go, yeah, well, there was a reason he was available.
It's going to be really interesting. The KC Lab broke down a lot of just like the roster in general, just kind of like where the holes are for this team on each side of the ball. And, when you really start to kind of peel back these layers, like they've got some, they're going to have some conundrums they're going to be faced with, especially I think a lot of it gets shine. A lot of the attention gets focused on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, it can be really tough. And Matty Lane's kind of been the pioneer of this idea, which I think it's a great point to bring up of just like the way that Steve Spagnuolo has ran defenses. He's always kind of had that safety, that safety that he can trust and run the defense through. I know that he loves Nick Bolton, but like Justin Reed and Tyrann Mathieu, just like his time in Kansas City, he's had those guys that he can kind of use and move around and kind of trust to get the back end ready. Even go back to his time in New York, he's had those guys as well.
Yeah,
I'm going to be curious to see how they approach the defensive side of the ball, Matt. I don't know what your thought process is kind of on free agency and then like how the Chiefs should address either side of the ball. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, and some of the philosophy that I've thought of is free agency, go offense and defense in the draft, right? Because if you can get as cheap as you can on the defensive side of the ball for Patrick Mahomes while still being good, I think you can live with that if you're giving Patrick Mahomes some good talent. Looking at this class of free agents, it doesn't like spark a lot of confidence, I should say, in the offensive side of the ball in terms of talent, as we just discussed. But how do you think they handle the defensive side of the ball with a Minihue and Nick Bolton and Justin Reed and these guys all up for contracts?
So, look, I think if you're Brett Beach, like with Justin Reed, for example, you got to ask yourself, are you going to pay Brian Cook a long-term deal? Are you going to give him a long-term deal? Because the answer to the question is, don't you sign Justin Reed?
Right.
Sign one of them. Which one? And by the way, this might surprise people out there. Justin Reed is 1 year older than Brian Cook.
Yeah.
He's not much older than him. He came in the league when he was like 20. Okay? Like, he's not much older. Which player would you rather have for the next, let's say, 3 years? And that's the question Brett Beach has to answer. If you pay Nick Bolton, are you like? It's almost a question of who would you rather pay, Nick Bolton or Leo Chenal? Because you're not going to pay both of them,
right?
Like I got to tell you, I'd rather pay Leo Chenal. Dude, also Leo Chenal is going to cost a fraction of what Bolton's going to cost, and I think, quite frankly, I think he's a better football player. Like,
yeah,
I mean, my answer to the linebacking thing is the most cliche but easy answer of all time. Let Nick Bolton walk and sign Willie Gay back.
Yeah.
Give Willie Gay 1 year and $3 million. You're the most athletic linebackers at football at that point. Free shot.
Yeah.
Like, go do it. Like Amenahu and Wirt, it's a little different because there's nobody who you're like, would you rather sign this guy or that guy necessarily? But like, if they plan on cutting Dana after this upcoming season, then it's almost Amenahu's almost like, well, are you going to draft the guy early, or are you going to, cut Dana, or are you going to sign Amenahu? Like, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts,
especially with that defensive line too that hasn't seen a ton of turnover, in general. Like that, like. Last year, it was practically the same defensive line as the year before. So they haven't had a ton of like new blood, I guess, in that defensive line. But Matt, let's take a break. We're on a 2-break format now. So we're going to take our first break, and then on the other side of this, we're going to talk about the defense or the offensive side of the ball after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
So obviously on the offensive side of the ball, the big thing is the wide receivers, because they have Nico Remigio and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice under contract, and Sky Moore, I guess. Those are your 4 guys under contract. I'll be interested to see how they approach this wide receiver room, because look, you're going to need to probably bring Hollywood Brown back just in terms of the room and just having guys there. But what do you think that they do for wide receivers?
I just think that they have to add a meaningful player. I mean, look, they've got Worthy and they've got Rice. Remigio, I think, is clearly the return man of the future here. He was excellent. Sky Moore is in the last year of his deal. I know people are cut him. I get it, and like I'm not even arguing, but like he's cheap as hell, and he could be your number 6 receiver. Like, fine, okay. That really leaves you with 2 spots. They could bring back Hollywood Brown, and I don't have a problem with them bringing back Hollywood Brown, but to me, then you got to also bring in somebody else who can play. And to me, that is either Davante Adams or, I think T. Higgins getting tagged. Chris Godwin sounds like he and the Bucs, there might be some traction there. Let's say those guys aren't out there. To me, that's then maybe do you make a call into Deebo Samuel? I mean, I kind of think Debo's shot, but I also wonder if that's a little bit of a thing where a change of scenery wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'm out on Cooper Kupp personally. I think he's definitely shot.
Yeah.
And I also think he's a pure slot guy, and they have Rice. But like, I would look at. I'll tell you right now, man. I'd call the Saints up about Chris Olave. I know he's got concussion issues. I get it. That kid is ultra talented,
right?
And I wonder if the Saints would move off of him for a mid-round pick, because he's going into what could be the last year of his deal, depending upon whether they exercise 50-year option. The Chiefs could trade for him. The guy's got a $1.4 million cap hit this year. Like, to me, that's the move. That's the move. I think my reasoning behind that thought process is you go into next year having a pretty good idea that Rice may not start the year with the team, right? Like whether he's suspended or he's come back from being injured. If you just bring back Hollywood Brown, when you go 3 wide to start the year, it's Worthy, it's Brown, and it's who? I don't know. Sky Moore? Is that what it is? Like, it just like, and like, what happens? What happens if, God forbid, Brown or Worthy yanks a hamstring and is out 3 games? You have nobody, man. You're trotting out a bum fest, and it's like, hey, good luck, Pat. Here you go. Whereas if you go sign, let's just use the name. Let's just say they signed Davante Adams. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say Brown pulls a hamstring. You still have Worthy and Davante Adams. Like, you at least are in a position, okay, yeah, you're down a guy, but you have those guys. And if nobody gets hurt to start the year, and let's say Rice is out for the first 4 weeks, you have Brown, Worthy, and Davante Adams. And then when Rice comes back, you have Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Davante Adams. And Hollywood Brown is like an insurance policy. Okay? That offense is going to cook the crap out of some teams. Like, to me, if I'm Brett Veach, I'm going into it with the mentality that I am basically foolproofing this offense. We are not going to get stuck in a situation again where if a guy gets hurt, we're just screwed. Yeah. And I think that's got to be part of the equation. But again, look, they've got a lot of holes that they got to fill here. They've got some things they've got to do. I understand that. But at the same point, yeah, look, Everybody talks about Devontae Adams like he's washed up. Got 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns with the Raiders and the Jets
Yeah.
in 14 games. Like, that guy can play. And on the Chiefs, as weird as it sounds, he's not even the number 1 when Rice is there.
Right.
I mean, that guy's your 2. Worthy's your 3. That offense with a good back is going to score 1 million points.
That's going to be really interesting, too, the running back conversation. We'll get there here in a second because I think that there's interesting conversations to be had. Stephon Diggs. Does that interest you at all, Matt?
Yes, depending on the price.
Fair.
But yes. And I know there are people who are like, well, Stephon Diggs, he's older and he's coming off the knee. I get all that. Stephon Diggs last year played 8 games and had 496 yards and 3 touchdowns. And for anyone who struggles with math, that's over 1,000-yard pace. I mean, even if he had 800 yards, you're not paying him to come in and be the number 1 receiver.
Right.
You're paying the guy. I'm not advocating. Now, the only world where he would have been the number 1 guy is Higgins. Okay? Like, and that's fine. You're going to have to pay him for it. And even though if I'm the Chiefs, I would have made the call. Like, in reality, do I think they would have signed T. Higgins? Probably not. Godwin is kind of like a 1A, 1B with Rice, although I think even at this point, Rice is the better player.
Yeah.
But, like, man, yeah, Stephon Diggs to come in and be, your 2 or 3? Like, yeah. I just think if you're the Chiefs, you cannot have another year like you've had the last 2 years offensively, where it's just pulling teeth to get 8 yards.
Right.
You can't. Like, I would literally spend almost every available resource I have this year on the offense, with the lone exception being if you're not going to pay Cook, then I would pay Reed, and I'd pay one of those D alignment, a Menahu or a Wharton. I'd pay one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, every financial resource I have, receiver, tackle, obviously, I would sign Trey Smith. I'd pay him.
Yeah.
I would draft a running back. I would probably, well, if they sign a left tackle, then I'm not drafting a left tackle, obviously. Of course, if they don't sign a tackle, then I would obviously draft one.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends what they do there.
Right.
But, like, I'll give you another one. It is a weird one. I wouldn't do this early, obviously. Third day, I draft a quarterback. And no, not because, like, maybe you take over from Mahomes. Like, because they've had older veteran guys kind of cycle through there.
Right.
And Andy's amazing at developing quarterbacks. Like, that's the kind of pick that's one of those, like, first off, you develop a young guy as your backup just to be there, and that's fine. But also, like, maybe you showcase that guy in week 18, and you can get, like, a second or third round pick down the line for him. It's like, that's why. So if anybody's out there like, oh, my God, Mahomes, like, no. Like, no. They're not drafting a succession of Mahomes. The point is, it's the kind of thing where maybe you can develop that kid and you can flip him into a pretty good pick down the line. Like, I think that's worth a 6th round pick. Not saying I would take that guy in the 3rd or 4th round, but like late in the draft, sure, what the hell? But I think, look, offensively, you've got to get the tackle. I would bring back Trey Smith. I just would. You got to bring in a receiver, in my opinion. If you do those things, I mean, if they walked out of this offseason with Cam Robinson, Trey Smith, and Stephon Diggs, if that offense can't score 30 points a game, they ought to quit.
Yeah.
Honestly. Plus, like, you draft the running back. And for anyone who's out there thinking, well, they couldn't do that, let's even throw in Hollywood Brown. Let's say you gave Diggs and Brown between them. What do you think, Diggs? 1-year deal?
Yeah, probably. I don't think he would want more than that.
So let's say between the two of them, it's 1 year apiece. Diggs makes 10, Brown makes 7. All right, so it's $17 million against the cap. Let's say you sign Smith for just to make it easy math. Say it's $500. Let's say his cap hits $7 million, which is about what it would be. Then you sign Cam Robinson. Let's say it's $360. The cap hits $10 million. I mean, I just gave you all those guys. It's $34 million. The Mahomes restructure covers all that.
Yeah.
And Brown and Diggs are not affecting your future cap.
Yeah.
Right? And you getting rid of Taylor pays for Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what are we talking about? You paid Cam Robbins? Who cares? Like, this idea that you're somehow over a barrel financially is a joke. Like, you can sign all those guys. You're not paying crazy money. I think people hear those numbers and go, they couldn't pay Smith 100 and pay Cam Robinson 60. Yeah, they can. Yes, they can. Easily. They easily could do it.
Yeah.
And I think the Chiefs, like, to me, if they walked out of the offseason with some package of players like that, I'd be like, this team's ready to go, man. And on top of that, if you signed all those players at those positions, you go into the draft, you do whatever the hell you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you're now not pegged into drafting left tackle or you got to draft, XP. I'll tell you what, man, you could be a pick 31. Some corner could drop to you, but we're taking him.
Yeah.
By the way, quick thought on that, because I'm doing a lot of these pieces for SI right now. It made me think. Charvarius Ward's a free agent.
He is.
If you're the Chiefs, reunion, like, I know we don't talk about the corner much, but like that would move McDuffie back into the slot.
Yeah.
And you'd have Ward and Watson. That's a damn good secondary. And I don't know that Ward's going to cost a fortune. Like, it's a third deal. He's been very good. But I don't know. Like, could you get him for $3 and $45, something like that? I mean, you can't do all these things, right? These are just different options. But I was thinking about him as a guy who maybe they would be interested quietly in a corner, because then you could slide McDuffie back inside. You now have 3 corners that you feel really good about, and you're not doing this whole like Chamari Connor, Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson rotation from hell. Like, you can just play the guys you want. It's just, anyway, just a thought.
It is interesting to think about just kind of how the Chiefs can position themselves. And obviously, like, the philosophy is going to the draft, you don't want any like glaring holes. And Perfect has done a really good job, I think, of that, leading into a lot of these drafts, of not having any of these large glaring holes. It just kind of helps when you draft a team and you don't have anything that you necessarily have to draft for, especially in the first round. And like this year, I don't necessarily know if that's going to be possible with all the things that we've written down. With like, there's going to be a hole, I think, by the time they get to the draft. But I do think that, like, you mentioned just what they can do on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's the approach. Like, I think that has to be the approach. If you're spending your money on the offensive side of the ball with your all-world quarterback, giving him the pieces and the tools to succeed on that side of the ball, then you can get young on the defensive side of the ball. And when you're young and cost-effective on the defensive side of the ball, that'll help you for the offensive side of the ball. I think that has to be the philosophy going into it, especially in a draft that, as you mentioned, not that great in terms of like the tackles either. Like that's kind of what worries me a little bit. I think Cam Robinson would be fine. Like if you get a for sure, all right, this guy is our left tackle. Like, if you know who the left tackle is going to be heading into the draft, I think I feel pretty damn confident going into the draft.
Yeah, and again, like, look, I just fundamentally disagree with people that say, well, they can't sign a left tackle and Trey Smith. Yes, they can. And because people have this thing about, like, well, you can't pay 5 offensive linemen. They don't understand. And look, I get it. I just for a living, and we have to know this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to lay this out as basically as I can for people. All right. So let's say, just for shits and giggles, they signed Cam Robinson and Trey Smith. Okay, to the same contracts I just said, $3 and $65 months. They are not paying big money to either of those guys this season.
Correct.
Okay. Clark Hunt's paying big money because he's laying out the escrow. But their cap hits are not big cap hits. Joe Thuney has a big cap hit. Juwan Taylor has a big cap hit. Humphrey has what I would describe as a medium hit at $10 million. Okay. Thuney and Taylor are 26.9. I believe both 26.9. Going into 2026, Robinson and Smith would have significant cap hits, as would Humphrey. However, Taylor will be cut, and they save $20 million.
Yeah.
Thuney, if he's not extended, is then gone. They're only paying 2 big hits and a medium hit this year, and then the 3 big hits the following year. They're never paying 4 or 5 big hits.
Right.
They're not. That's not how this works. And if they extend Thuney, then they're only having one big hit this year because they're going to lower his number significantly this year. So they're never paying 5 or 4 massive contracts in a year. That's just not happening. That's not true. So I look at it and say, you want to fix this offensive line, go get, whatever, whether it's a Lars Jackson or Cam Robinson, go get one of those guys and sign Trey Smith. That's an offensive line, okay? With Tooney, with Humphrey, fine. You got Taylor, who's, he is what he is, but like you can at least chip and help him, at least pack and see the oncoming train on that side of the line. Like, okay, and then you add, like you said, a Stephon Diggs, or maybe you trade for Chris Olave. Or something like that. You got those guys with Rashee Rice, and if you bring back Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, if that offense doesn't score 30 points a game, quit. Yeah. Everybody in charge. I don't want to hear Blameyer talking about being scared. At that point, there should be no fear by anybody in that offense. Mahomes, Nagy, Blameyer, or Andy, none of them. Like that offense they should put the fear of God in everybody they play, especially if they draft the back, which they should, especially in this class. So the idea that they can't do it is just nonsensical. It's not true. They can do it. They can easily do it. And that's where I think the Chiefs have to be aggressive. Clark Hunt has to open up the wallet and say, all right, I'm willing to spend whatever it is, $125 million in escrow this offseason. Like, fine. He's good for the money. I guarantee you he's not going to First National, take a loan out. He's all right. So they can do it. And by the way, bring back an Amenahu or a Wharton and Reed. They can do that. Like this notion they can't do it. It's simply not true. By the way, especially if Kelsey retires.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, they can do whatever the hell they want. So, I mean, they have the money.
Looking at the running back now, like it's the running back position is so interesting because now it's going through kind of a renaissance of some sort of where you're getting to see these Saquon Barkleys and these players that signed last year, these veteran running backs go and have kind of new life, and now they're so successful. I never thought we were going to see a 2,000-yard rusher again, Matt, and then Saquon Barkley did it this year. Impressed with what he has to do, so I'm curious to see how teams overreact to that market necessarily. It's not a great, I shouldn't say, not as great of a running back class in free agency this year than what it was last year. Hard to beat last year's. I think there was a lot of really good running backs up. Josh Jacobs, Saquon. There's one more I'm missing in there that went somewhere else. But Derrick Henry, yes. Pretty damn good running back market last year.
Yeah,
looking at the running back market this year, there are some pretty good guys out there like Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, A.J. Dillon, Nick Chubb. Javonte Williams is one that is wildly interesting to me, and I think that the Chiefs should probably take a look at it, give him a call, because he is 24 years old and vastly younger than everyone on this list. To get Javonte Williams in town, I think would be a guy that a lot of people love too coming out of the draft. I think a lot of people did like him. Also, a really good running back draft class as well. I'm curious how the Chiefs do approach running back, because this year, man, I don't know if you can do the running back the unk ball that they played this year with the running back with Kareem Hunt. I don't know if he still's got that juice anymore. Look. Shout out to Kareem Hunt for everything that he did, but golly, he was out. You could tell that the bus was out of gas when it came down to it down the stretch there. Isaiah Pacheco's entering the final year of his deal. He doesn't have the same juice that he has because, he broke his ankle. That will probably cause some juice to be go. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now playing for the Saints. Carson Steele can't hold on to a football. So, they've got a problem at the running back room I don't think that is talked about very much. How do you think that they approach this going into the offseason?
So I think you have to draft one of these guys. I mean, there's a million people in Mobile were talking about how this was like 2 running back classes in one. You guys draft one of these guys, man. I wouldn't take one in the first round. Okay. I mean, the only way I think I'm running back in the first round is if they literally just go out of their minds in free agency and you get to a point where you're so loaded that you're like, all right, what the hell, but we've seen them do that before. and it did not work out. But I would take one of these guys on day 2. I would do that.
Yeah.
That to me is, probably where I like to see them go about that. Now, look, this is one of these classes where you're going to see a million running backs go in the first 2 days. There's just a ton of talent. Daniel Jeremiah, who works over at NFL.com, is a great guy. He does terrific work. He had 3 running backs in the first round. He had Ashton Genty of Boise State, who's going to be a first-round pick, no question. Then he had Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, which I thought was interesting. He's actually a guy I like for the Chiefs, but I just don't think the Chiefs are going to take him because they'd take a first-round pick. And then there's Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Those are the 3 guys that he had going in the first round. For the record, by the way, he had Josh Connerly Jr., a tackle from Oregon, going to the Chiefs. But, yeah, I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm looking day 2. I'm looking at day 2 because I think that's probably where you might get some decent value. I think that's probably the spot that if the Chiefs take a guy, they'll take him. Like Chad Reeder, also of NFL, like I'm also a nice guy. He has Genty going 6th overall in his mind.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to question Chad, but I feel like, man, if you think a running back 6th overall, that guy better be God. Okay. Then he had a different Ohio State running back on in the first round. He had Quishon Judkins going.
Interesting.
Yeah, he had him going 21 to Pittsburgh. And then let's see here. He had those are the only guys he had in round 1. Round 2, just trying to give everybody an idea of where some of these guys might go.
Yeah.
See, he doesn't have a running back again until I'm going through round 2. He still doesn't have another running back. So this is where Jadon. Okay, actually, has him going to the Chiefs. Jadon Blue of Texas.
Ooh,
63.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah.
So, and for anyone who's not familiar with Jadon Blue, he played at Texas 3 years. Last year, averaged 5.4 yards carry, 8 touchdowns. He also caught 42 passes and scored 6 touchdowns in the air, so that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like this is a class. There's going to be a lot of options. There's going to be a lot of options. It's just so funny. Like this time of year, people have such wildly different opinions on players.
Yeah.
Like, it's got Caleb Johnson at Iowa as a running back going. He's got Travion Henderson going 77th to New England. I mean, Trevor Etienne going to Jacksonville, which would be hilarious.
That would be.
Like he doesn't have. He's got Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee going. He doesn't have Hampton going in the first 3 rounds. And Jeremiah's got him going like 22nd. But that's why the combine is good because it'll crystallize a lot of that. Like you're gonna start seeing a lot more. Like, okay, this is where this guy's going to go, and some of that's based off their on-field testing and the medicals, and some of that's based off of being able to talk to teams and kind of get an idea of where they're actually going to slot in.
For sure. I do think that's going to be a big one. Matt, let's take our last break here. Then we'll talk about the combine as you and I will be there in Indianapolis in a week, less than a week, really. I'll come in town on Monday because the Chiefs will talk on Tuesday. But we will be there in Indianapolis. We're going to take a quick timeout. We'll be back to wrap up the show after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
NFL Scouting Combine starts on Thursday, February 27th, runs through Sunday, March the 2nd. There are coaches and GMs that will talk on Tuesday and Wednesday of that week. I think some players maybe talk Wednesday, but I think it's mainly coaches and GMs that are Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday, the players will start to come in, and we will get workouts and such for that. Maybe specialists will talk on Thursday, on Wednesday. But Matt and I will be there, as we have for the past however many years, to talk to these guys, kind of get a feel on what all's going on. But what I think the big thing about the combine is not necessarily that's about the players there, but it's about just kind of talking to everyone there in the league is all in the same spot. And I think that is where a lot of deals get done. late at night. Matt, what are you looking forward to about Indianapolis?
Oh, just hearing everything. I mean, that's my favorite. I love going to Prime. I love going to Prime 47 and then smoking a cigar at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then taking 4 showers to not smell like a cigar, and then sleeping for 45 minutes and going to the conference center. It's good. Honestly, like, genuinely, my favorite part is going out at night, because not because I can go drink, like I can do that at the house, okay, but like because you get a real sense of like the markets of some of these guys and what teams are interested. You know, and like the more you go and the more people see you and talk to you, the more like they'll actually say to you, because they know, like, okay, I know who this guy is, whatever.
Yeah.
That to me is the fun part, you know, like. That's the part. I remember years ago, Roger Saffold was a free agent. Like, he was with the Rams. And I was talking to somebody who was around that situation. And I was like, hey, I think he's going to resign. The guy looked at me, he's like, he was a few drinks in. He's like, oh, he's not fucking resigning. It's like, it was so funny because like the whole week, there were all these articles about Roger Saffold, like going back to the Rams. It made sense. He's like, no, there's a 0% chance it's happening. And he ended up, I think it went like the Titans or something. But it was just very funny. And you get some of that. Like, you get a good idea of it. I look, as much as the draft is super important and we'll be covering it, and I'm going to be really invested in it, I don't care so much about the on-field drills. I don't care. And even the interviews these guys that they give to us, like, it's cool and all, but like, they're not going to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in talking to these people who are with teams and the agents who are like, hey, man, this or that, you know, like, and you get those information breadcrumbs, because I can tell everybody right now, like you said, and you're right, Tucker, like, the NFL can sit there and tell you all day long, March 10th is when free agency starts. I'm going to tell you something right now. Free agency starts at the Marriott. Okay. That's where it starts. There are guys openly sitting with agents, just negotiating on a napkin. Like,
Yeah.
I had a guy tell me one time that he basically got his player signed at the Senior Bowl. Okay? Like, the season wasn't over.
Yeah.
These agents are going to all these teams, and I'm not saying they're agreeing to contracts there, but they're like, all right, are you interested? If you are, how much are you in for? How much? Like, they leave the combine knowing, like, this is what I'm looking at. Like, they're not. There's a reason when like March 10th comes around, like the beginning of the tampering period, and somebody immediately announces a contract. Yes, because it was done at high velocity. Okay, like that's how you know they had that conversation. That wasn't done in 3 minutes over the phone at noon. So bear in mind, like, this is a big week for that stuff. This is a big week. These GMs, when they leave there, they have a pretty damn good idea what they're looking at for the offseason.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fun about this week as well. As you mentioned, you do get the on-field drills, but I do think a lot of this too about the combine is the medical testing is big for to get everybody together, to get the consensus medical testing, the consensus measuring, just so you can take out as many variables as possible when it comes to just the different measurements of these guys. I think that's huge. But a lot of these guys, right, don't necessarily change their draft stock all that much with the combine. We saw Xavier Worthy set a record at the 40-yard dash, but still ended up in Kansas City. He still ended up, and the Chiefs did have to trade up for him, but it didn't like bump him up a whole lot, I would say. Like, I still think that was the range that people anticipated him to go. I think a lot of times, and there's a funny saying that, like, you know, when you're watching a player, you have your opinion on him like 8 snaps in. Like, you know what your opinion is going to be 80 snaps in. And I think there's a lot of things that, like, this is just like confirming priors for a lot of guys. When you can see him in person, obviously it helps to talk to these guys, and obviously the team meetings are very big as well. I'm not looking forward to, Matt, is when I'm trying to talk to guys, and they said, "I've heard of the Steelers."
I think I said this to you, but I'll share it on the podcast. A couple of years ago, Kayvon Thibodeau was coming out, and every year, universally, was going to be a top 10 pick, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's crowd around this guy, because everyone else is talking. And I thought he was the best player coming out, or at least one of the top, like, 3 or 4 players coming out, I should say. So I'm like, all right, definitely want to hear this. And a lot of people have talked about it. He's a pretty interesting guy. So get over there. And my friend, who's a phenomenal writer, Mike Tanier, asks a question, and Thibodeau starts talking about how he learned the game of chess from his grandfather, and how much the game means to him, and how it shapes the way he looks at life, and all this stuff, right? So I follow up with like, how do you, like, I forget exactly. So it was something to the effect of like, well, what is your mentality when you play chess? What are you thinking? Like, gives this really insightful answer. Somebody's like, have you visited with Carolina? And you're like, oh my God, man. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this guy's actually giving real answers. And you're just, like, then we break the train of thought, because you're like, have you visited with a team that's not going to draft you? Oh, yeah. Okay. Like, oh my God. Just, here's my PSA to everybody in our industry. Just fucking assume he's visited with your team.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm big on journalistic integrity, but I got to tell you, that's one I'll give you a pass. If you cover the one team that he didn't visit with and you wrote that he did, I'll write your retraction for you. Believe me, he's visited with your team. He has. I promise you. Like, it drives me nuts. No, look, the bottom line, people I think misunderstand the combine. Okay. The combine, teams will tell you the two things they care about are the interviews and the medicals.
Yeah.
That's what they care about. These teams, by and large, don't give a shit about the on-field testing stuff. They just don't, because they already know, for the most part, what this guy's going to test at, or somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
They've scouted them for years. Brett Veach is not me and Tucker sitting here turning on YouTube to watch, a guy playing against Ole Miss and go, oh, this guy's pretty good. Like, their area scouts have been scouting these kids and talking to their coaches and talking to people talking to their teachers for years.
Mm-hmm.
They're aware of guys that are freshmen right now. They're aware of guys that are in high school.
Right.
Like, they're scouting kids 2 and 3 years out. They're not waking up tonight going, damn, drafts in a couple months. We got to get on that. Like, so when they go to the combine, they're not like, nobody was shocked Xavier Worthy ran fast. Like, I guarantee you that he's all like, whoa. So he was a 4.7 guy. Like, like, nobody. The only time I think that on-field testing stuff matters is if it is genuinely so much better or so much worse than it's expected to be.
Yeah.
Then those teams will go back and review film and maybe even talk to some people and go, what happened there? What did we miss?
Mm-hmm.
Then I think it matters. But if you think some guy's going to run a 4.38 and he runs a 4.44, nobody's like, oh, hold on now. We got to reevaluate everything we thought about, Joe over here. We got to go through our whole stuff. No. That's not how this works. Like, nobody's running a quick 40, a fast 40, and somebody up in the box for the Bills is like, whoa, like, who the hell is this guy? Like, that's not how this works. Like, when people are like, this guy's rising up draft boards. Yeah. For Walter Football, he's rising up the draft board. For Brett Veach, he's been there. Like, that's the whole point. That's why they do this for a living. So just, bear that in mind when you're watching the combine.
I do think that is a good warning to heed to people. But yes, it is fun they've started to include the fans a little bit more into the combine as well. They've got the whole fan experience. I went and did it last year, had the highest vertical jump of anyone at KCSN, not a big deal. People don't talk about that enough. It was like my combine video. And look, I did the obstacle course, ran that sucker, made it my bitch. Yeah, like, I mean, look, wow. I put on a clinic. I put on a clinic last year at the combine that people don't talk about enough for a man of my size. But it really is honestly kind of shocking that I wasn't drafted. I was kind of anticipating to get the call on day 3 last year. Didn't get a call. But it's too bad. I guess I have to put on another good performance this year to see if I can rise up to the draft.
Kissel go through the drills?
Oh yeah.
Can he still physically move?
Well, I will say I did get dusted by both him and Haley on the 40-yard dash. But look, we knew that speed wasn't my game. We knew that wasn't going to be my calling card. But I will say the obstacle course with like the bags and the agility stuff crushed it.
You play high school football?
Yeah, I did. I was a center.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I I did not play high school football because I played hockey. I played like as a kid, like the Pop Warner stuff, and then I played 1 year. I can't. God, it must have been JV modified. I can't. Who the hell? I can't remember. I was awful because I can't run, but I was big. So they're like, even in high school, I was 200 pounds. They're like, well, I was a small school. So like, oh, you can play, play on the line. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I need to be like a tight end. Cause like one thing I could do is like a catch. So I'm like, look, make me a tight end. I'll catch the ball. I'm not afraid to get hit. I'll run somebody over. It's fine. And I remember like one of the first practices, there was 1 year, I think I was a sophomore in high school. I was like, I'm going to play football and hockey. I can do it. Right? I'm like, I could do it because most of our high school years, September, October, some August stuff. And I'm like, I can physically handle it because then hockey kind of ramped up for us in October and then it went all the way into April. Yeah. So I'm like, no problem. We did the Oklahoma drill. I got murdered. I by every senior on the team, just murdered. All these kids have been playing for years on end, like dedicated themselves to football. And I'm like, all I'll do is to get in condition for hockey. I think I played for about 2 weeks and went to the coach and was like, listen, I've never quit anything in my life. I am not going to be an asset to this team. I can't. I'm like, bro, I'm going to die. Like, I'm trying to do this in off-ice conditioning, and I am borderline in like traction. Yeah. I can't move. This is a terrible idea for all parties involved. And I already just like laughed. He was my gym teacher. He's like, yeah, man. Like, I had a feeling this was going to be a challenge because I know you're going to play hockey. I was like, I'll support you all I can, man, but I got to just play hockey. It was a train wreck. I did not have the foot speed to play outside. They wanted me to play on the line. I'm like, bro, I'm not technically sound. Like, this is a disaster. It made me appreciate people who play football because I'm like, I love football. And I get, listen, you want to go play flag football, you want to catch, I'm down. I can do it all day long. But like, you want me to pull out and try to knock down a linebacker? Nah, that's not going to happen. I'm going to get run over by a running back. I don't have the foot speed to do that. I'm sticking to a sport where I'm on skates and I can skate a lot faster than I can run. So I'm like, I can skate fast. I can't run fast. But all of a sudden, I've been given the gift of speed on the ice.
Interesting.
And so, I'll never forget that Oklahoma drum. I got killed. Like, oh, my God. I'm glad I did it because it's a fun story. But, brutal. It was like, I have like friends on the team who were just killing me. I'm like, this is not, I was tall, but in high school, I was somewhat lanky. It just did not work out.
I've been a pioneer of the idea of if you don't agree with somebody or if like there's a take that you disagree with online, just to be able to challenge to someone to an Oklahoma drill. I don't know if I brought this up on the show yet or not, but like kind of like an old timey duel, right? Like if you're like, duel at high noon, Oklahoma drill at high noon, let's go, strap them up, buddy. I think that take sucks. Oklahoma drill. So anytime anyone, if anyone's listening to this podcast. If anyone's listening to this podcast now, we appreciate obviously you sticking all the way through to the end of it. So like if you just see me respond to somebody Oklahoma drill to someone who has like a bad tweet, you know the context now because I'm just like challenging them to a duel basically.
Now that my hockey days are well behind me, once I get this shot in the back, I'm ready to do an Oklahoma drill. We get after it. I'm ready. Look, people should solve their problems more with sporting duels, right? Yeah. Like Oklahoma drill, but even maybe if you're not in the physical shape to do an Oklahoma drill at this point in your life, maybe you're like 50 or 55. Maybe you're like, hey, look, we're going to go to a batting cage and the first person to hit 10 balls fair wins. And whoever loses has to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Or like, game of horse, like, and if it's got to be something physical, fine. There's got to be something physical. But maybe it's not that big of a disagreement and you can play a game of horse. And I'll tell you what, there's a hell of a lot of pressure if you got to can it when you got to hit that 12-foot jumper or it's E.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it.
And I think this is where we make the podcast come full circle, because as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, you just drop gloves, right? In hockey, where like if you just like disagree with somebody, we just need to drop gloves more in terms of just like real life.
Hockey's great for a million reasons, but we can end it here. When I was in high school, I was like very, very serious about playing hockey. That was my thing. And I played on a travel team, a state team. And so we get to the state playoffs my junior year, and we're playing this school who is beating us 4-1 in the state quarterfinals with like 10 seconds left. I shouldn't say the league quarterfinals with like 10 seconds left. We're going to lose. And in hockey, for anyone who doesn't know, you only get one timeout per game.
Right.
Like, it's like a minute, whatever. So this guy for Cornwall, stupid town, stupid name. Okay. This coach of theirs calls timeout with like 10.2 to go. And my coach, who's like Brooklyn through and through, hates this guy, tells our captain, Chris Clavin, he's like, look, go over to the bench and tell that guy he's a dick. So he does. And the coach is yelling at our coach over the penalty box. And our coach is like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's totally unsportsmanlike, whatever. The next year, we play them in the last game of the regular season. We're already in the state playoffs. They've got to try to get in. They got to win to get in. I'm the captain of the team my senior year. Puck gets iced. We're up 4-1 with 10.2 seconds. It was the exact to the 10th of a second situation as the year prior. And my coach called the timeout and just stared at the guy. Didn't say one word the whole time. The guy's cursing him out and screaming at him. And it was the greatest. Like, we all knew why he did it. Like, everybody who was on the team the year prior knew. We all remembered it. And I remember being like, this is the greatest thing of all time. And we ended up going to the playoffs. We were a 6 seed. 8 teams made it. We were the 6 seed. We played Washingtonville, where, fun fact, that's where Scott Pioli's from. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we went to Washingtonville. We played them in the, what would it have been, I guess, the quarterfinals. And we're underdogs. And their coach had made a comment before the game about, like, this will be a really good, test. And it'll be a nice test for us before we play John Jay. And we were all like, oh, okay. Man, we beat the piss out of them. We beat them so bad in that game. We beat them like 8-3. Scored 2 goals in the first minute. And our coach had like a fleece on that had like a pocket in the front for his hand.
Yeah.
He pulled out an air horn with like 10 seconds left and just laid on this air horn. It's one of the greatest. Man, they were pissed. But I'll tell you what, it was great. Like, nothing ended up coming of it physically, but like, we're like, all right, maybe a brawl ends this game. We're going to see how it goes. Just blow an air horn out of it. That's all I'm saying. Like, hockey's amazing. Yeah. I hope there's a million fights in this U.S.-Canada game. I'm here for it all. Bring it all. Every bit of it. All of it. Like, I you know what? U.S.-Canada becoming a rivalry for a lot of reasons over the last, I don't know, month and a half. Everything was great. And now all of a sudden there's this visceral hatred. It's God, please. Let's play it out on a sheet of ice. Let's go for it.
Yeah. I'm excited for that, and excited for the combine as well. As the next time we do a show, Matt, we will be in Indianapolis. So I will see you there, and we will see all you from Indianapolis as well. So that's going to do it for that football show. For Matt Verderame, I'm Tucker Franklin. Thank you to our sponsors, Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon and Holiday Distillery. Go check them out. Hey, they do have their merch online now, so you can go check them out. Go get their merch. Search Holiday Distillery up on Google, and you can find that website there to get their merch. If you are there, I got a really nice Holiday Distillery hat that I love. It's one of the best hats I have. I've got a ginormous head, and it is a good hat for big heads. So go check it out. That's going to do it for this week's edition. We'll talk to you guys next week.